Welcome to today's Explainer. I am so thrilled you're tuning in because today we're doing something a little bit different. And honestly, it's just incredibly fascinating. We're going to unpack a single, highly concentrated piece of news, literally just one sentence. But hidden within this one sentence are massive, massive global implications for healthcare, logistics, and millions of human lives. We're going to deconstruct this headline piece by piece to see exactly how the modern world works when it comes to global health.
Okay, let's dive right in. 129. I want you to keep this staggering number locked in the forefront of your mind as we go through this explainer, because this isn't just a random statistic, right? It represents the scale of sovereign nations, meaning hundreds of millions, if not billions, of people who are about to experience a monumental shift in healthcare access. We're talking about more than half the countries on the entire planet, all suddenly linked together by a single strategic decision. Which naturally brings up a massive logical puzzle. How is this even possible? How does a single, solitary medical intervention, specifically a pill that's still officially in the experimental phase, manage to reach a footprint of 129 independent nations? I mean, usually, rolling out a fully approved, well-established medicine to that many regions takes decades of slow bureaucratic grinding. Yet, here we are looking at an experimental drug prepping for near-simultaneous global reach. How does the architecture of that kind of distribution actually work? Well, to solve that puzzle, we kind of have to play detective and look at our core piece of evidence. This right here is the exact headline we're dissecting today. Merck licenses experimental HIV pill to generic makers in 129 countries. It's a heavy hitter of a sentence. It gives us the who, the what, the how, and the where, all crammed into just a dozen words. But to really grasp the gravity of what's happening, we need to take a scalpel to this thing. Let's break it down into its 5 core load-bearing components. We've got the originator, Merck. We've got the subject, the experimental HIV pill, the legal mechanism, licensing, the distributors, the generic makers, and finally the scale, 129 countries. We're going to use a ripple effect analogy today to understand how these pieces connect. We'll start right at the very center, the pebble dropping in the pond, and watch how that energy transfers all the way out to the rest of the globe. So, zooming right into the dead center of our concentric circles, the absolute micro-level starting point of this entire global event. Everything begins with a single formula, cooked up inside a single laboratory. Before the international agreements, before the logistics, there is just the science. And you really have to notice the fascinating contrast in these first two elements. You have Merck, a massive, incredibly well-resourced pharmaceutical company, linked directly with the word experimental. Now, in traditional medicine, pharma companies fiercely guard their experimental formulas, right? They keep them locked down like Fort Knox while running clinical trials, and they only prep for wide distribution once the drug is fully approved and heavily patented. But the wording here? It implies a totally proactive stance. They are not waiting for the entire process to finish before laying the groundwork for global access. But here's the rub. How do you take a highly complex chemical formula, one developed by a single corporate entity, and physically get it out into the broad world rapidly? A single company, no matter how big they are, simply doesn't have the sheer manufacturing bandwidth to instantly supply 129 countries all on their own. They desperately need a business mechanism that allows this singular experimental pill to break out of their proprietary labs. And that brings us to the absolute magic word in our headline: licensing. This is what makes the impossible entirely possible. Licensing is basically the process of granting legal permission to other companies to manufacture and distribute a proprietary product. It's essentially Merck saying, hey, we own the recipe, but we are going to legally authorize you guys to actually bake the cake. Without licensing, the formula is trapped. It's stuck behind the bottleneck of one company's manufacturing limits. But with licensing, the floodgates open. And this creates a beautifully efficient, logical flow. Step 1, Merck develops the pill in their labs. Step 2, that heavily guarded formula gets legally licensed out. Step 3, independent manufacturers step up to physically produce the drug. And boom, Step 4, because production is now decentralized, it can hit those 129 countries simultaneously. It's just an incredibly elegant system of delegation. So now that the formula is legally unlocked, who exactly is catching the baton? Enter the crucial agents of this global rollout, the generic makers. These are companies whose entire business model is built on mass-producing medications at scale, usually way after patents have expired. But in this unique scenario, they're being brought into the fold while the drug is still experimental.
It really is a stark contrast when you think about it. On one side, you have the experimental branded pill. By definition, that is a singular, highly controlled environment, one developer trying to solve a massive problem. But on the other side, the generic makers. This represents multiple, widely distributed producers. By linking that singular developer to the multiple producers through a licensing agreement, you completely shatter the bottleneck of mass production. It is the ultimate democratization of a healthcare solution.
By officially handing the formula over to these generic makers, Merck is essentially open sourcing the manufacturing process to trusted partners. Think of it like this. Merck is providing the architectural blueprints, and the generic makers are providing the raw industrial labor and machinery to build the actual skyscrapers. This strategic partnership is exactly what sets the stage for rapid, unparalleled global distribution.
Which finally brings us to the outermost concentric circle, the grand finale of our ripple effect. We've gone from a single lab to a legal contract to multiple manufacturing plants in now the global tidal wave. We are right back to that staggering number we started with, reaching 129 countries. And this perfectly captures the immense human scale of this decision, a value of one, just the original developer, scaling instantly to 129 distinct nations. It shows you exactly why this licensing mechanism is so insanely powerful. One company's decision to share its intellectual property literally scales into a healthcare intervention for more than half the globe. So, what does this all mean when we put the pieces back together? We've torn the headline apart, we isolated the variables, and we saw how they interact. Now it's time to synthesize this and understand the true impact of this global health ripple. Because, guys, this isn't just about a single HIV pill anymore. It's about a proven framework for how we can deploy medical innovations across the world at unprecedented speeds. To kind of wrap up our deep dive today, here is the basic framework. The action is licensing the formula, the legal unlocking of the science, the agent doing all the heavy lifting, the generic makers, the decentralized engine of mass production, and the resulting scale is 129 countries, a massive immediate global footprint. When those three elements perfectly align, you transform a singular experimental pill sitting in a lab into a massive, tangible global healthcare event. Which leaves us with a truly fascinating question to ponder as we close out. We've just seen the blueprint for how Merck is handling this specific HIV pill, but think bigger for a second. If one targeted licensing agreement can seamlessly distribute a medicine to 129 countries before it even officially leaves the experimental phase, what could this mean for the future of all experimental medicines? If this becomes the new normal, could we see a future where medical breakthroughs reach every corner of the globe the actual second they are proven effective? It's an incredible thought, and to think it all started with just one headline. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.